The Seattle International Film Festival is going on now. It's one of the coolest cultural events in our city. And it's championed by film goers and film lovers and great supporters of the arts in our community. Every year we get to talk to interesting people, see some fantastic films, sometimes big stars who want to be in films that they just love the script to. Oftentimes stories that aren't like Spider-Man 12. New stories by great authors and produced by great people. Red Knot is Scott Cohen's first movie, but it's not something he shot on a soundstage or the streets of Brooklyn. Scott and his crew traveled all the way to Antarctica, so they weren't just looking for a nice warm vacation. They told the story of a couple who fall into a bit of a crisis. They're married. They decide they're going to research whales at the bottom of the world and head for Antarctica. Starring, I hope I get this right, Vincent Kartheiser and Olivia Thirlby. And it premieres at the SIF Cinema Uptown Saturday at 6. Also playing there Sunday at 2:30. Scott Cohen, welcome to the Bob Rivers Show. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
All right. So the first thing I thought of when I saw the premise of the movie is, well, if you want to have a marital crisis, don't book that cruise to Antarctica, right?
Perhaps not a great idea as a newly married couple, to get on a ship for a month and head out to sea.
Yeah, I mean, you got to work stuff out first. But this is about the whales, right?
Well, actually, it's a fictional story. It's a narrative feature film about a young couple who end up on a research vessel heading down to Antarctica, and the husband was invited to cover a story about the whale biologist Roger Payne, who is on the ship and plays himself. And Roger Payne was the person who first recorded and really documented the songs of whales. And so he features in the film quite a bit. But
so is there a soundtrack of the songs Whales that goes along with the film?
No, there's a beautiful soundtrack by Garth Stevenson and some other songs by some original singer-songwriters, and the Billie Holiday song we just heard.
The one, Very Thought of You, that's your favorite song personally, right?
Well, The Very Thought of You is a song that was made quite famous by Billie Holiday. It's performed by an extraordinary young woman in this film, and it's in the film. Yeah,
it's in the movie.
It's in the movie.
That's cool. And so, all right, what do they fight about on the boat?
Well, this is a couple who is newly married, and they discover that they just don't know each other that well and how to communicate very well. So when they're on the ship at sea, there's a pretty significant misunderstanding that drives a wedge into their marriage and creates kind of a dynamic between them, and the captain figures in pretty predominantly into the film as well.
The captain figures predominantly. I know we don't want to do any spoilers, but the captain figures predominantly. So, and now to shoot something like this, what's really, are you on a real, you don't really take off and head for Antarctica and shoot it on the open sea, or do you?
Oh, yeah, of course. I mean, as someone who's transitioning from the visual arts to making a narrative film, you have to kind of build a strategy for how you're going to make a kind of extraordinary first feature film. So my strategy was to find the most extraordinary, talented people I could find, and trap them on a boat at sea in the Southern Ocean.
So, in other words, so they would be method acting in a way, right? Yeah.
Exactly. You don't want these. Vincent Kartheiser, who stars in Mad Men, was on hiatus for that period of time, and Olivia Thirlby, who you guys probably know from
terrific.
Juno and Flight 93.
She's so funny.
So the idea was they really loved the story and the idea of portraying this story on a ship at sea, and we were on a research vessel for nearly a month.
And was it the real whale research vessel that is part of the story?
Yeah. So it was a very verite experience.
But you didn't really go to Antarctica from L.A. You started in Antarctica and you did a loop, right?
No,
No,
we did. We started at southern Argentina.
Wow.
There were 17 of us, including the 4 actors and my crew. We boarded a ship, and we went on the great adventure of a lifetime.
So you have to prepare for this not just as a movie, but as a real expedition, as a real adventure, because the weather could start getting rough. Not to be cliche, the tiny ship could be tossed. I mean, you have to prepare for everything, right?
Yeah. We crossed the roughest sea
And there's
in the
not
world.
the kind of catering that stars typically come
Seriously,
to
what
expect
was food services sucked?
in this research vessel, right?
No, we all lived exactly the same experience. We were on the great journey together.
Tell me about a typical day on the boat.
Well, there was no typical day because every day changed. Every day you were on a different day of the journey. You're crossing you're leaving southern Argentina. You're crossing the Southern Ocean. Then you're hitting really the roughest 3 days of your life at sea. And
you had that for 3 days. Were you scared at all?
There wasn't time because we were actually making a film, so we actually had to work and document.
We got to get this because these are your special effects.
These are your moments.
Yeah.
These are your moments.
Wow.
These are the big dollar
How big were the
moments.
waves?
They were big. The boat was just a little. We were just getting
You were
thrown all
bobbing.
around.
Was it like that movie? What was that movie?
Forrest Gump in a soundstage where they had
No,
a big
no, no,
fan, they
no.
rocked the boat. back and
No,
forth,
the
like,
one with George
Lieutenant Dan's legs came off in CGI. Come on.
No, the
you
one
didn't
with
go
George
anywhere.
Clooney,
Right.
The Perfect Storm. Was it because the boat you go up and you go down and you can't see and you go up? Was it that bad?
Come see the film.
That's
see the film.
nauseating. I don't like that.
Spoiler alert.
You're trying to tell me that Vincent and Olivia didn't fly down and meet you in Antarctica? They actually were on the boat through all that?
No, they were Vincent, Olivia, and Billy Campbell. They were really all up for the
Damn.
adventure. And the amazing thing was we all were, seeing the ice for the first time when you cross the Antarctic convergence after you've been through the rough seas, and you realize, wow, we're arriving at the bottom of the planet. And so we all were experiencing this as a team, but at the same time we were, mapping a story and shooting a narrative.
When you
feature.
go down there to shoot something like that, you got to take everything. I mean, you got a plan. Did you run out of anything? Did you go, oh man, we forgot the batteries or milk or anything that you really, really needed?
So we shipped a container of equipment from New York, and actually, because of the timing of how this project came about, we actually had to ship all the equipment before we had a cast. So we didn't even know if we had a film yet. But we shipped all the equipment to southern Argentina, and then as we were in pre-production, Olivia Thirlby found out about the project, and she said, "Look, I've got to be part of this project. I want to tell this story." And so she jumped on board. Vincent Kartheiser, I got through a casting director, and he felt very strongly about the idea of
This is your first film. A lot of great films at the SIF, and a lot of them are independent films, and people really had to work hard to finance these things. How do you do your first film in Antarctica? Are you rich? Or
No, I mean, I had the great fortune of a very dear friend had chartered this research vessel for some documentary work he wanted to do in Antarctica, and he needed the mobility of this ship. So he chartered the ship, but he didn't need the entire thing. So we were at dinner one night, and he said to me, "Look, I want you to come along and do your work," which was photography at the time. And I said, I've been thinking about a story, a narrative, and I think it would be amazing to set it on the ship. And he said, well, let's do it.
You saw a situation that you could take advantage of to make a film in a unique setting under a unique set of circumstances, and you had a story that went with that. Did the story come afterwards, or did you already have the story?
So the story was in development. It was about a young marriage, and the idea of having a ship that could be both your set, your transportation, your lodging. It was everything.
It was actually efficient, wasn't it?
Quite efficient.
Made it on a small budget. Wow.
If you make a sequel, do you have to hurry because the ice cap's melting at an alarming rate? Have you already booked it, or?
I'm trying to think what should be the sequel. Should be about the middle, like a marriage 30 years later.
30 years
perhaps.
later, this couple goes on the same cruise, and they go, why are we doing this again? Yes, by the way, Eric Corman is in the other room and has a question for you. Go ahead, Eric.
Greetings, Scott. I love to travel, and I've been to every continent except Antarctica. So as someone who has never been, what was the impression like for you seeing the ice for the first time?
It's the most otherworldly feeling I've ever had in my life, and I think all of us felt that way. You just there's no sense, there's no visual cues of humanity down there. There's nothing that feels like what we see every
No
day.
Starbucks?
No Starbucks. Actually,
There's not a Starbucks in Antarctica.
I can't wrap my head around
It's
that.
really beautiful and extraordinary, and gives you a sense of the planet. Actually. Yeah.
Go see it. Red Knot premieres at SIF Saturday at 6, and also Sunday at 2:30 p.m. at SIF Cinema Uptown. Nice to meet you, Scott.
Nice
All
to meet
the
you
best.
all. Thank you.